Can you imagine ever traveling somewhere outside without knowing where you are going? No map, no directions, no steps, somewhere you have never been before, somewhere totally uncharted. For how many of you guys, that sounds like something exciting? You're like, that would be awesome. I would love to do that. How many of you guys are like, yeah, I do not want to do that at all? Well, when I show you these pictures, you're going to change your mind because some of the places are awesome. I would love it. Imagine being here on top of that waterfall and someone just dropped you out there and just going, hey, just explore. That'd be awesome. Or like this place.
What is that?
It's like a big mountaintop area. It looks like a floating rock. Or like here, that would be awesome. And that is actually underwater, I believe. I think that's a fish at the very top or a mermaid, either one of those things. So, man, be underwater like that exploring. Or like my oldest daughter, when she was really little, she wanted to be an astronaut. Imagine exploring out there, be in uncharted territory. For me, the only time when I really experienced being in uncharted territory, one of the first times I remember was in 5th grade. My mom moved me from Morgan Hill, California to San Jose, California in the middle of the school year, and I had to attend elite elementary school, and it was really out of my comfort zone. I mean, I truly felt in uncharted land because I had grown up in Morgan Hill in my neighborhood, gone to school with all these kids growing up, we all were friends, and all of a sudden I'm in this new school, this new neighborhood, and I don't even know how to make friends. Like before I didn't have to make friends because we all were just friends anyway. And so to be in that situation was scary for me. Maybe you can think of a time when you've been in uncharted territory as well. Maybe it was, if you don't remember that far back, but back in 6th grade or 7th grade, whenever your school moves you up to the middle school area, and all of a sudden you were in this school and you saw these 8th graders and these guys with mustaches that looked like they were 24 years old. You're like, I don't know how many years that kid has failed in 8th grade, but he needs to move on. I remember being totally afraid. For you 8th graders, right now, you're the top dogs at your school, and in just a few months, you're going to be the little freshmen, and you're going to feel that uncharted feeling. Or maybe you felt like that when you joined a new sports team, and you were the new kid, and you didn't know anyone else on the team. Or maybe it was this year when you got your phone, your first phone, and you're finally being able to explore things. You're like, man, this is awesome, but you've never done it before. Or maybe this year it was the first time you had like a real relationship, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you felt so uncomfortable because your mom dropped you off at the mall or at Cinemark, and you're there and you're like, this is so uncomfortable, what do we do? Do I hold hands? Do I not? Ah! That whole feeling of being in uncharted territory. Well, today we're going to talk about what is it like when God calls you into uncharted territory. What is it like, and how do we have the courage to follow it? Because it is scary. It can be scary. And the question is, are you willing to go into uncharted territory when God calls you to go? And by God calling you, I don't mean like an actual voice, like Hannah, come over here, or anything like that, like an actual voice. Wakanda forever, or anything like that. No. I just mean like something like in your heart, something that you feel in your heart or your mind. You just know that God is asking you to do something. And when that happens, it can feel like uncharted territory, and it can feel really, really scary. So what does it look like to do that? I mean, God could be calling you to do something extreme. He could be calling you to leave someone or something that you really, really love. God could be asking you to do something incredibly boring. But what do you do with that? When God calls you to do something, what does that look like? Well, thankfully, we have so many stories in the Bible of people that have been asked to do that, been in uncharted territory. And one of them we're going to focus on this month is the guy's name of Abraham. And this is in the book of Genesis. So Abraham was 75 years old, had been living with his people. This is his family's people. He's married, doesn't have any kids. And God tells him and challenges him and says, hey, I want you to do something awesome. Check out what he says in Genesis chapter 12. God says, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you. Now, to think through this, here is Abraham. He's 75 years old, doesn't have any kids. He does not seem like the guy for this job to be the father of the nations. And back in those days, if you didn't have kids, people wondered what you did wrong. Why is God cursing you? Because you wanted to have a lot of kids to be able to farm the farm and to have success, to make a lot of money. So when you didn't have kids to work the farm, you were not going to have any cash. So people are like, what's wrong with you? How did you sin that God's not blessing you with children? And so here God is saying, I want you to leave everything that you know, everyone that you know, and I want you to go to this land, and I am going to bless you. I'm going to make you the father of nations. At one point, God says to him, I want you to look out at the stars. How many stars do you see? That's how many children you are going to have. And so for Abraham, that's an incredible promise. Now, you can imagine if God came up to you and he's like, hey, I want you to leave your house, and I'm going to make you the President of the United States, or I'm going to make you the richest person who ever lived. You would be motivated to go, but there would still be a fear of, what do I do? How can I leave everything that I know? And that's the question. What do you do when God calls you to do that? It's what God called Abraham. Abraham had to step into uncharted territory to follow a God he barely knew. And it all began with one step. And it's not like it was an easy thing. He had a life full of failures, and we'll talk about that in the weeks coming up. But in order to go where God wanted him to go, he had to trust God. God was calling him, and he had to take a step of faith to say, you know what, I'll do it. I'll do it, God. I'm going to go where you want me to go. And so what does that look like for you as a middle schooler? Because I'll tell you, it can be scary, right? How do you take a small step of faith, even when you don't know what's going to happen or how it's going to affect your life? How do you trust God in that situation? That is where real faith comes in. Because God is going to ask you to do some things. I don't know what those things are going to be. And I don't know what your response is going to be. For some of you guys, you feel like, you've been a Christian for a while, and you feel like, God, I want you to ask me to do something, but I don't know. I haven't heard your voice. I don't know what to do. I do believe in you. Well, maybe your action step for you is that you're going to tell God that you're listening to him and that you're waiting for him. Maybe for some of you, you're like, I don't even know what I believe about God. I'm not a Christian. I have way more questions than I have answers. What do I do then? Well, maybe your next step is just to ask God, to be open to listening and thinking about what God would have you do. Maybe there's some of you in here that you feel like, I have made so many mistakes. I've done so many bad things. There's no way God could call me to do something and to use me. And I just want you to know that is not true. That God loves you. That you have been forgiven forever. That there's nothing that you can do to make God love you any more or any less than he does now. If you don't get anything today, please know that God has incredible plans for you. And while he's not saying to you, I'm going to make you the mother of the nations or father of the nations, God has incredible plans for you. John 10:10, Jesus said, the thief, talking about Satan, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come so that you can have life and have it to the full. We believe here in the chapel that life doesn't make sense outside of a relationship with Jesus. That you have to know God to experience everything that God has for you. And so God is asking you to do something. He will continue to call you to live a life that he wants you to live. And so you'll have to decide, what do I want to do with that? But I never want you to think that you're too bad or that you're too sinful or you make too many mistakes. God loves you, and he loved forgiving you of your sins. The last thing, the group of people, you might be sitting there going, I do believe in Jesus, and I am ready for God to do something. Then our challenge for you is to ask for God's courage in taking that step. Matthew, will you go back to the one thing that talks about small steps lead to big change? There you go. Small steps lead to big places. That's our big idea today. The idea that small steps lead to big places, that even small steps of faith, it all begins with one step. Abraham had to take one step. He had to trust God and going, okay, God, you're telling me to lead everything and everyone I've ever known, and you're going to do this stuff. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm going to trust you. And he took a step. And that's really the life of faith, of trusting God. He asks you to do things, and instead of going, no, I don't want to do that, you go, okay, I don't know how you're going to do this, God, but I'm going to trust you with that. And so that's our challenge for you today. So we're going to take a quick break for 2 minutes for you to get a drink, get something to eat, and then go into your small groups. But I want you to be thinking about this question while you're doing that. And that's this: what's one thing holding you back from taking the next step God has for you? What's one thing that's holding you back from taking the next step God has for you?